Could you please support my channel by subscribing? Liam Brooks stared out of the small, circular window of the space shuttle, the vastness of space stretching endlessly beyond. His breath came in short, painful gasps, a constant reminder of the tuberculosis that had been ravaging his body for years. The disease had stripped him of his strength, leaving him frail and gaunt, a shadow of the man he once was. His skin had taken on a sickly pallor, and his eyes, once vibrant and full of life, now looked dull, sunken, and tired. He had traveled the world in search of a cure, but no treatment had been effective. Tuberculosis had evolved into a drug-resistant form, a silent predator that slowly consumed his lungs, making every breath feel like a battle. From hospital to hospital, clinic to clinic, he had chased the faintest glimmers of hope, but each new treatment had ended in failure. Desperation had driven him here, to the cold, metallic confines of this shuttle, far above the Earth he had once called home. The experiment was his last hope, though it wasn't really designed to save him. Liam was part of a scientific study, an effort to see how human diseases might react to the conditions of space. The scientists back on Earth were interested in the effects of low-gravity radiation and the vacuum of space on the human body, particularly one ravaged by a disease like tuberculosis. Liam's illness was an anomaly, and that made him a useful test subject. In truth, they had little concern for his survival. He was just another data point, another number in their endless quest for knowledge. The shuttle hummed softly as it soared through the darkness, its trajectory carefully plotted by the crew. Liam's seat, small and uncomfortable, seemed to amplify the pain in his chest. Every breath rattled in his lungs, each inhale sharp and painful. He closed his eyes, trying to focus on anything other than the constant ache. The hum of the shuttle, the soft beeps of the control panels, the steady voices of the crew, they were all small distractions from the agony he endured. He didn't have much time left. He knew that, but he wasn't ready to give up, not yet. Liam had spent years fighting this disease, and even though every attempt to find a cure had failed, some part of him still clung to the hope that there was an answer out there somewhere. Perhaps space, with all its unknowns and mysteries, held the key to his survival. If not, at least he would die knowing he had explored the final frontier, that he had seen the stars up close. Suddenly, the soft hum of the shuttle was interrupted by a violent jolt. Liam's eyes snapped open, his heart racing as alarms blared throughout the cabin. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls as the crew scrambled to their stations. "What's happening?" Liam managed to ask, his voice weak and strained. "We've hit some kind of anomaly," the pilot shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "I don't know what it is, but it's pulling us off course." Liam gripped the armrests of his seat as the shuttle lurched again, this time more violently. The stars outside the window seemed to blur and twist, stretching into long, distorted lines of light. The entire shuttle shuddered, and Liam felt a strange sensation in his stomach, as though gravity itself had shifted. The crew was shouting now, their voices a chaotic mix of panic and confusion. Liam's heart pounded in his chest, the pain in his lungs forgotten in the face of this new terror. Whatever was happening, it wasn't part of the plan. The shuttle spun wildly, and Liam was thrown against his restraints, his head slamming into the side of his seat. Stars danced in his vision, and for a moment everything went black. When he opened his eyes again, the shuttle was still spinning, but the view outside the window had changed. The stars, once distant and familiar, were now warped and twisted, swirling around the shuttle like a cosmic storm. "Gravitational anomaly," one of the crew members shouted. "We're being pulled in." Liam's mind raced. A gravitational anomaly. What did that even mean? He had heard of black holes, of wormholes, and other cosmic phenomena, but they were theoretical things that happened in the far reaches of space. Not here, not this close to Earth. The shuttle shuddered again, and the swirling lights outside seemed to intensify. Liam's vision blurred, his head spinning as the forces around him grew stronger. The gravitational pull was immense, far beyond anything the shuttle was designed to handle. The crew was powerless to stop it. For what felt like an eternity, the shuttle tumbled through the anomaly, the crew's desperate attempts to regain control proving futile. Liam clung to his seat, his body trembling with fear and exhaustion. He had faced death before. His illness had brought him to the brink more times than he could count, but this was different. This was a force beyond his understanding, beyond anything he had ever imagined. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the turbulence stopped. The shuttle slowed, its wild spinning coming to an abrupt halt. The alarms fell silent, and the lights flickered back to full brightness. For a moment there was only stillness. The crew, battered and shaken, stared at the control panels in stunned silence. Liam's heart raced as he looked out the window. The stars were gone. In their place was a vast, unfamiliar planet, its surface shimmering with strange colors. It was like nothing Liam had ever seen, a world completely alien, unlike anything recorded by human astronomers. The shuttle drifted toward it, its systems damaged and unresponsive, until finally, with a soft but jarring thud, it crash-landed on the planet's surface. When Liam opened his eyes again, everything was still. The shuttle lay in pieces around him, the metal hull twisted and broken from the impact. The air was thick and warm, filled with the scent of something unfamiliar, something almost metallic. His body ached all over, his muscles sore and weak from the crash. He tried to sit up, coughing violently as his lungs struggled to draw in the heavy, alien air. For a moment he simply lay there, trying to gather his thoughts. Where was he? What had happened to the rest of the crew? His mind was foggy, his memories of the crash disjointed and confused. He could barely remember the final moments before impact, the wild spinning of the shuttle, the flashing lights, the alarms blaring. But now everything was quiet. Slowly, painfully, Liam pushed himself to his feet, his legs trembling beneath him. The world around him was unlike anything he had ever seen. The sky was a deep, swirling shade of violet, streaked with strange, shimmering clouds. Towering mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks jagged and sharp, while the ground beneath his feet was a rough, rocky terrain, dotted with strange, bioluminescent plants that glowed faintly in the dim light. He was no longer on Earth. That much was clear. But where was he? And more importantly, how was he going to survive? Liam's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of movement behind him. He turned, his heart racing, and saw them. Aliens. There were 3 of them, tall and slender, their skin a shimmering shade of blue that seemed to glow in the strange light of the planet. They moved gracefully, their limbs long and elegant, their eyes large and luminous. They were humanoid in shape, but their features were sharp, almost ethereal, their expressions unreadable. Liam froze, his body tense with fear. He had dreamed of encountering alien life, as many people on Earth had, but now that the moment was here, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know if they were friendly or hostile, or if they even understood what he was. The aliens approached slowly, their eyes locked on Liam. One of them reached out, gesturing toward him with a hand that ended in long, delicate fingers. They spoke, their voices low and melodic, but the words were incomprehensible, a language unlike anything Liam had ever heard. I don't understand, Liam stammered, his voice shaking. Please, I'm not a threat. The aliens didn't seem to comprehend his words. They exchanged glances. Then one of them stepped forward, producing a small, glowing device from a pouch at its side. The device emitted a soft hum, and a beam of light scanned over Liam's body, sending a shiver down his spine. Liam's heart pounded in his chest as the alien studied the readings on the device, its expression shifting subtly. The other aliens watched closely, their eyes narrowing slightly, their gazes intense. For a moment, Liam thought they were going to attack him. But then, without warning, the alien holding the device spoke again, this time in a different tone. The melodic language was still there, but there was something else now, an edge of curiosity, maybe even concern. The alien gestured toward Liam, and before he could react, they moved toward him with surprising speed. He felt a hand on his arm, firm but not painful, guiding him away from the wreckage of the shuttle. His mind raced with questions, but there was no time to think. The aliens had taken control of the situation, and Liam had no choice but to follow. The alien city rose before him, its towering spires reaching toward the strange violet sky. The structures were unlike anything Liam had ever seen, sleek, smooth, and made of materials he couldn't even begin to identify. The city shimmered with light, a soft, glowing energy that pulsed through the streets and buildings like veins in a living thing. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a world so advanced that it made Liam feel like an insect caught in the gears of some vast, unknowable machine. The aliens led him through the city, their pace quick but measured. He stumbled as they guided him forward, his body still weak from the crash and the effects of his illness. Every few steps he had to pause, clutching his chest as he coughed violently, his lungs struggling to draw in the thick, unfamiliar air. The aliens showed no outward signs of concern, but Liam could feel their eyes on him, watching his every move with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Liam's lungs burned with every breath, his chest tight as he stumbled alongside the aliens through their strange city. Each step felt heavier than the last, his disease weighing him down like a constant reminder that time was running out. He wasn't sure if these creatures had any idea how sick he was, but if they did, they showed no signs of concern, only curiosity. The city itself was a marvel of alien architecture, unlike anything Liam had ever imagined. The buildings shimmered, as though they were alive, pulsing with faint energy beneath their smooth surfaces. The sky above was an endless swirl of deep purples and blues, casting a surreal glow on everything below. Alien beings moved about in the distance, but none of them looked his way. To them, he was just another specimen, another unknown to be studied. Finally, after what felt like hours of walking, they arrived at a tall structure near the city center. The aliens guiding Liam led him inside, where the cool, sterile air hit him immediately. The interior was a stark contrast to the outside, cold, metallic, and clinical. He was taken to a small chamber, the walls lined with strange, glowing symbols that seemed to shift and change as he looked at them. Without a word, the aliens left him alone. For a moment, the silence was almost comforting. Liam's legs gave out, and he collapsed onto a small, cold bench. His head throbbed, his lungs screamed for air, and his body was drenched in sweat. The effects of his illness had worsened since the crash, accelerated by the alien environment or perhaps the stress of everything he had endured. He leaned back, closing his eyes, and for a moment, he allowed himself to drift into unconsciousness. He wasn't sure how much time had passed when the sound of soft footsteps woke him. Blinking groggily, Liam opened his eyes to see one of the aliens standing over him. This one was different from the others, slightly shorter, more slender, and wearing what appeared to be medical garments. In their hand was a strange glowing device, similar to the one used to scan him earlier. The alien spoke in its melodic language, but the tone was different now, softer, almost soothing. As it approached, it activated the device, casting a light over Liam's body. He felt a tingling sensation run through him as the alien moved the scanner over his chest, his arms, his head. The light from the device seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat, a rhythm that made him feel strangely calm. The alien looked at the readings, its expression unreadable, before stepping back. It spoke again, and this time, Liam thought he could detect a note of concern in its voice. The alien tapped something on the wall, and moments later the door slid open. 2 more aliens entered, their movements quick and efficient. Before Liam could protest, they lifted him from the bench and carried him down a long, sterile hallway. He was taken to a small, sealed room, clearly a medical facility of some kind. The walls were smooth and reflective, and there was a single bed in the center. The aliens placed him gently on the bed, then left the room, the door sliding shut behind them. Liam was too weak to resist, too tired to even question what was happening. He coughed again, the pain in his chest almost unbearable now. His body felt like it was shutting down, the disease consuming him from the inside out. Liam lay there, his eyes heavy, his breath shallow. He didn't know what the aliens wanted from him, but right now, all he wanted was to sleep, to rest, maybe even to give in. The fight had gone on for too long, and he wasn't sure how much more he had left in him. And then, just as his eyelids fluttered closed, he saw her. The door slid open with a soft whoosh, and a figure stepped inside. At first, Liam thought it was just another alien coming to examine him, another cold and clinical presence. But as the figure approached, he realized this one was different. There was a softness to her movements, a gentleness that set her apart from the others. Her skin was the same silvery blue as the others, but her eyes were deep, filled with an intelligence and kindness that Liam hadn't seen before. She approached slowly, her expression calm and reassuring. In her hands, she held another one of those glowing devices, but this time the light it emitted was softer, almost comforting. Liam tried to sit up, but his body refused to cooperate, the weight of his illness pinning him down. "Dressed," she said in a voice that startled him. The language was different, Earth's language, his language. How could she know it? "I am Zura," she continued, her voice low and soothing. "I am a healer here. I've been studying your condition. You're very sick." Liam coughed, the effort sending sharp pain through his chest. "Yeah," he managed to rasp. "I've been sick for a long time." Zura's eyes softened with sympathy. She moved closer, holding the glowing device over his chest. "Your disease is unfamiliar to us," she said, "but I believe I can help." Her words were like a lifeline, a glimmer of hope in the darkness that had surrounded Liam for so long. He had heard similar promises before, from countless doctors and specialists on Earth, but there was something different about Zura. Something about her presence made him believe that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. You can cure me?" he asked, his voice trembling with both fear and hope. Zura didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at the device in her hands, her expression focused. "Your illness is complex," she said finally. "It has taken hold of your body in ways we do not fully understand. But our technology is advanced, more advanced than anything on your planet. I believe there is a chance." Liam closed his eyes, a wave of emotion washing over him. He had been searching for so long, fighting for so long, and now here he was on an alien world, with an alien doctor telling him she could help. It seemed impossible. And yet it was happening. "I don't have much time," Liam whispered. "I can feel it." Zura placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch cool and gentle. "You have more time than you think," she said softly. "Let me help you. Let me try." Liam nodded, too exhausted to argue. He didn't have the strength to fight anymore, but he didn't need to. Not now. Not with Zura here. Over the next few days, Zura worked tirelessly, administering treatments that Liam could barely understand. She used advanced alien technology devices that emitted strange lights and sounds, injections of glowing liquids that seemed to course through his veins like fire. The treatments were intense, often leaving him drained and in pain, but slowly he began to feel a change. His cough became less frequent. The pain in his chest eased, if only slightly. It wasn't a cure, not yet, but it was something. For the first time in years, Liam felt a flicker of hope. Through it all, Zura remained by his side, her presence a constant source of comfort. She spoke to him about her world, about the advancements her people had made in medicine and technology. She was fascinated by his illness. But more than that, she was fascinated by him, by his resilience, his determination to survive despite everything he had been through. And as the days passed, Liam found himself opening up to her. He told her about Earth, about the places he had traveled in search of a cure, about the people he had left behind. He spoke of his family, of the friends who had watched him deteriorate, helpless to stop it. Zura listened, her deep, kind eyes never leaving his. She didn't judge, didn't offer empty platitudes. She simply listened, and in that, Liam found a kind of peace he hadn't felt in years. As Liam's body slowly healed, so did his spirit. He began to see Zura not just as his doctor, but as something more. There was a connection between them, something that went beyond patient and healer. It was a bond forged in the shared vulnerability of his illness, in the quiet moments they spent together, talking about their worlds, their lives, their hopes. And one night, as Zura sat beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm, Liam realized something he hadn't expected. He was falling in love with her. The realization came slowly, like the warmth of the sun creeping over the horizon after a long, cold night. It was subtle at first, just a quiet thought in the back of Liam's mind. But as the days passed, it grew stronger, undeniable. He had fallen in love with Zura. It wasn't just her beauty, though that was part of it. Her silvery blue skin shimmered softly in the light, her eyes reflecting the alien sky in ways that mesmerized him. But it was more than that. It was her kindness, her intelligence, her unwavering dedication to helping him. She had become his anchor, the one thing keeping him grounded in this strange, unfamiliar world. Zura, too, seemed to sense the shift between them. Their conversations grew longer, more personal. They spoke not just of medicine and science, but of dreams, of what they wanted out of life. Zura had spent her life healing others, but in Liam she had found someone who made her feel alive in a way she hadn't expected. There was something about his humanity, his vulnerability, that touched her deeply. One evening, as they sat together beneath the alien sky, Liam found himself reaching for her hand. It was a simple gesture, but it felt monumental, a bridge between two worlds. Zura looked at him, her eyes soft and warm, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. "I never thought I'd feel this way again," Liam said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Especially not here, not like this." Zura smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. "Neither did I," she admitted, "but I'm glad I did." Liam squeezed her hand, feeling the coolness of her skin against his. "You've given me more than just my health," he said. "You've given me hope. You've given me you." For a long moment they sat in silence, the weight of their words hanging in the air. Then, slowly, Zura leaned closer, her eyes never leaving his. Liam's heart raced, his breath catching in his throat as their faces drew nearer. He could feel the warmth of her breath, the gentle brush of her skin against his. And then, finally, their lips met. It was a soft, tentative kiss, filled with the uncertainty of two beings from different worlds finding something they never expected. But in that moment, all of the barriers between them seemed to fade away. There was no sickness, no alien planet, no differences in culture or species. It was only the two of them, connected in a way that transcended everything else. When they finally pulled apart, Zura rested her forehead against his, her eyes closed, her breathing steady. "You're going to be okay," she whispered. "We're going to be okay." And for the first time in years, Liam truly believed her. Liam's recovery continued, and with each passing day he felt stronger. The treatments had worked better than he had dared to hope. His lungs, once ravaged by tuberculosis, were healing. The pain that had been a constant presence in his life was fading, replaced by a sense of renewed energy. But as his body healed, a new challenge emerged, one that weighed heavily on his mind. Earth had sent a retrieval signal. A ship was on its way to bring him back. The space program had not expected him to survive, much less thrive. And now they were eager to study the effects of his time on the alien planet. They wanted to understand how he had been cured, how the treatments administered by Zura and her people had saved him. Liam knew what that meant. If he turned to Earth, he would be subjected to endless tests and studies. The scientists would want to pick apart his body, his experiences, his memories. They would demand answers, and they would see him not as a person but as a subject, an experiment. But there was more than that. If he returned to Earth, he would have to leave Zura behind. The thought filled him with dread. Zura had become more than just a healer to him. She was his partner, his confidante, the person he had come to love. The idea of going back to Earth without her, of returning to a life where she didn't exist, was unbearable. And yet, Earth was his home. His family, his friends, his entire life had been there. Could he really leave it all behind? Could he abandon everything he had once known for the chance to build a new life on an alien world? Zura sensed his inner turmoil. She always did. "You don't have to make a decision right away," she told him one evening as they sat together, watching the alien sky turn from deep purple to midnight blue. "But whatever you choose, know that I will support you." Liam looked at her, his heart heavy. "I don't want to leave you," he said quietly. "But I don't know if I can stay here either. My world, it's all I've ever known." Zura nodded, her expression understanding. "I know," she said softly. "But no matter where you go, I will always be with you. That I can promise." Liam swallowed hard, his mind racing. He had been fighting for so long for survival, for hope, for a cure. But now the fight had changed. Now he was fighting for something even more important. He was fighting for love. The Earth shuttle hovered above the alien planet, its sleek, metallic form a stark contrast to the organic, shimmering beauty of Zura's world. The retrieval team had arrived, eager to bring Liam back to Earth, to study him, to understand what had happened to him in the time he had spent on this alien planet. But as Liam stood at the edge of the landing platform, Zura by his side, he realized that his decision had already been made. "I'm not going back," he said quietly, his voice steady. Zura looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and love. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice soft. Liam nodded. "I've spent my whole life fighting to survive," he said, "but now I want to live, and I want to live with you." Zura's eyes glistened with emotion as she reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "Then stay," she whispered. "Stay with me. Stay here." The Earth team, confused and frustrated, tried to convince him otherwise. They spoke of the importance of his return, of the knowledge that could be gained from studying his recovery. But Liam was resolute. His place was no longer on Earth. His place was here, with Zura, in a world that had given him not only his life back, but also his heart. And so, as the Earth shuttle lifted off into the sky, leaving him behind, Liam felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. He had made his choice, and it was the right one. Together he and Zura would build a new life, a life filled with love, hope, and the promise of a future they would create together. The alien stars above them shimmered brightly, casting their light on the path ahead, and as Liam looked into Zura's eyes, he knew that this was just the beginning.